Yes! Oh, for heaven's sake! Okay, this might be working, I don't know. One would have thought that I am on number 13 of these. I would have got the hang of it. Good gracious, no. But please let me know in the comments if you can hear my voice and that you can hear the noodling all at the same time, ideally. That would be good. No, you're not late again. I've only just started. Whoever it is, Mr. Purple. Alright, so, yeah, please let me know if you can hear this. I'm just going to noodle and I'll keep coming back. Sounds good, somebody said. Good. That's always a good start. I'm going to move this knob here, look. Woo! Okay, how we doing out there in TV land? Okay, good. Welcome. I'll tell you what, I'll just mute some stuff with the DivKid mutes. Okay, I'll bring that down for a minute. The eagle-eyed of you may have noticed I've got my Mother 32 out. Yay! I knew I'd find a use for it sooner or later. The reason I have the Mother 32 out is because I'm doing a little bit on noise. I'm investigating noise at the moment, and I suddenly realised I'm not sure I have any sources of noise. I mean noise as opposed to just rubbish. But the Mother 32 has noise. It has a noise thing. This thing here. I've lost it. Where has it gone? Here. No, here. No, oh, I turned it down. There we go. Noise, like so. Noise that I can sweep and mess about with. And where did the next thing go? That's in there. That's that one with that one. That's that, which is the output. Oh yeah. It's a mute, you see? It's a mute, so I mute things out, deliberately mute things out, which is why I can't hear it. There it is. So then along with the noise from that, I started adding in the Bassimilus. Via a filter. Because that's a bit noisy. Depending. There we go. So that's nice. Then I brought in this fella here, the graphic VCO. Just looking for some wavetables, really. Because I thought I could find noise there, but I couldn't really. There's just lots of tones that you can sort of push into things. But none of it really was as noise focused as I thought. Honestly, I never quite know what to do with the graphic VCO. I don't know what I'm doing with it. But there we go. And then lastly, I added some pluck, because I always like the pluck, and that seems to be the sanity emerging out of the noise. If that makes sense. So that's quite nice. I like that combination of the noise from the Mother 32 and the pluck. That's quite pleasing to me. Anyway, I digress. I can get tied up in those things for hours. Hello, I'm Robin Vincent, and welcome to another Molten Live edition of Molten Live streaming here from sunny Norfolk. We're in a bit of a storm at the moment, so if the shed falls down, I do apologise, but hopefully someone will rescue me by the morning. We are here to chat about music technology, about things that have happened in the last month since the last one, and whatever it is that you'd like to bring up. I don't have a specific agenda this evening, do I? No, I don't think I do. I mean, obviously my last Molten Monthly was all about NAMM, mostly about focusing on products from NAMM, but we already did kind of a live stream after NAMM, so I don't necessarily want to automatically get into those products. Sorry, it's my window rattling as such. Although, of course, if you want to talk about something, that's fine. I'll happily talk about it. I'll also look up what things weren't at NAMM, what we might have missed. Talk about that. That'll be nice. So, without further ado, let's get stuck into this kind of thing. And you are very, very welcome here. And why don't you just open a beer and relax, get yourself some biscuits or something. Today is something to do with an octopus. I don't know what that's about. It says Twisted Knots American IPA. How nice. Something about a grapefruit aroma with notes of zesty citrus fruit. So it's in a can. I'm going to have to pour it into a glass. Hang on. Or maybe not. I don't know. Doobie-doo. Oh, shall I lift it up so you can see it? Is this good telly? I don't know. Oh dear. Anyway, there we go. So there's a bit of a beer. Apparently that's 5.5%, which is quite something. Yeah, I'm getting the citrus. Okay, good. So how you all doing? Let's have a look down the comments just to see how we're kicking off. See if anybody's getting in there quick that I can ignore straight away. Does that work? Oh yeah, it does work. Okay. So, oh, it says don't forget about your privacy. What? Okay, hello. Hi Oscar, hi Ape, hi Elephopian Tubes. Nice to have you, Brian. Great, glad you could make it. Just built your mutes. Yeah, it was not a difficult build. It was a little bit from time to time, but yeah, not a difficult build. You just had to go with it and put the thing together. You had to make some assumptions, go with your gut in a few instances, or go with that masses of experience you may have, which I do not, and run with it. And the result is great. It's a great little module. I can imagine myself using it all the time in every situation. In fact, I'm already using it. Although I did assume that everything would mix to the output, so you're still having to use other things to mix with. But that's okay. That's okay. I'm still doing that because I need other things and envelopes and other bits and pieces going on. It just adds an extra level of control when performing, which is really, really good. Interested in that. Red, white or pink noise? I don't have the faintest idea. It just says noise. It says noise, doesn't give it a colour. Just noise. That's all it says. The EDP Wasp has a very good noise, does it? What? Hi, hello. Hi, Thunder F. Cisco, glad you could make it. Get a noise generator module. Seems to be, the answer to everything is to get another module. I'm trying kind of actively not to do that. I mean, everything can be solved with another piece of gear. That's always true, but that's not necessarily the best approach. Maybe. Maybe the better approach is to try to find things within the gear that you have. Maybe. Or at least it's one idea. It's an idea I'm pursuing just at the moment anyway. What's the best reverb? The reverb. Best reverb. Well, it's bound to be that Strymon thing, isn't it? The Blue Sky. Big Sky. Big Sky, Blue Sky? Bound to be that one. But there are lots of reverbs. If you mean specifically Eurorack, then there's actually not a whole lot to choose from, because most people use the Big Sky. There are some DSP modules out there, for instance, the Tip Top ZDSP, Z4000. Well, I don't remember. Tip Top Audio do one anyway, a DSP based effects processor for Eurorack. Maybe that's worth checking out. But throw other ideas in. Herb verb, for instance, there's another one. Yeah, all good choices. I personally, the reverb I use is this is let's just be there. Is this one. And that's coming from the Synth DSP. Just a little module. Got a bunch of effects inside. I just use it for reverb. I should use it for other things. I do not. I use it for reverb because it's small, it's there, it has reverb, and I need reverb all the time, so I use it for reverb. Clouds. No, I don't think the clouds is a good example of reverb. It does have reverb in it, but I think that's a waste of what it does. Is just using it for reverb. I think it's sort of incidentally reverb as opposed to on purpose reverb. Perhaps, but what do I know? I sold my clouds. I didn't like it. Eventide is a possibility. The spring reverb on the Magneto, really? I've never really paused to look at that. Okay, I will check that out. I mean, I quite like the reverb on here as well. It's a TC electronic pedal. It's called the Sky Surfer. It's like 40 quid. It's got quite a nice reverb on it, and that has a spring, a plate, or a hall. And I generally use the spring, and I use it on my guitar, and I play it at extremely, just a small amount, just gives the guitar going through a regular amp an edge to it, a reverbed edge to it, which is nice. But on the rig, sounds nice. I like it when you put stuff through it. Whole life crisis. Apparently you need another personality. I'm sorry, I can try to be something else if that's helpful. I don't know. Disting Mark IV has a great stereo reverb. Apparently, if you could find it. Yeah, I've got a Disting about here. I have no idea what it does most of the time. And how do you find those algorithms? I don't know that either. Every time I go, oh no, I can use the Disting. In fact, the Disting has probably got noise inside that I could be using. In fact, I know that it has because it has a sample and hold circuit which includes noise, because I have done that. I had mastered that bit. I can't remember now, of course. And every time I want to change something on the Disting, I have to dig out the manual in order to find out which button do I hold, do I turn? Oh, I can't remember. So yeah, it probably does have a really great reverb. Worth checking out, worth spending the time with, I would suggest. Just what you think you're doing? I don't know. Aquachiron, if you've not been here before, welcome. You're so welcome here. What you will discover quite early on in these things, that I don't have any idea what I'm doing. I'm just giving it a go. So I claim no authority. I claim no expertise on anything. All I wish to do is share what I've found, what I've discovered with all of this, but also what I've discovered with other stuff, because I have an overflowing need to vomit my opinion out all over the world. And there seems to be just about enough people who go, yeah, all right, we'll listen to that, which kind of makes this thing continue to happen. So, I mean, what I'm really saying, I guess, is that it's your fault. It's the only reason why this is continuing, because people come along and listen. I mean, if I was just doing it to myself, I probably wouldn't do it, I suppose. Very deep. Anyway, need more Surface reviews. Yeah, we do. I do. Yeah, I mean, it's a thing. I mean, I've been thinking about this a lot recently, because I now, becoming aware that I've had the Surface for a couple of months now, and I've not done as much on it as I would like to do. And it's simply, I mean, just to throw the truth out there, is that it's not my day job, man. It's hard finding time. I've got a young family. I have a life to live. I have commitments and a job and money to earn, all those sorts of things. And so finding the time to do a Surface video, and particularly with Surface, because Surface is difficult because it requires time and thought and repetitive testing of things in order to actually get a correct reading on something. You can't just sit down, you know, people who do a 5-minute video on a piece of gear, that's fine. You can't do that with the Surface because you need to have done the testing and then cross-check it and then do it again and then cross-check it. And in order to do the sort of testing that I find valid myself, you actually have to spend a few hours formulating a project and creating a project. I mean, at the moment, the idea in my head is that I want to compare the Surface Go and the Surface Pro 6 in the same video, which means doing everything twice, which makes it twice as long. So every time I sit down to do this, I hit roadblocks of things like, oh, well, they don't have the same plugins on each platform, so I then go off and try and do that, and then I get distracted, and then I have to do some work, and then family calls, and then I come back to another day later and go, oh, they still don't have the same synths on, and then I do that and go through that rigmarole. And so very slowly I'm trying to get parity on the Surface Go and the Surface Pro 6 so that I can do a worthwhile test. I mean, I can do performance tests, I could run DAW bench on it, but it's not enough, I don't think. I think it's not enough. I need to do tests that actually demonstrate it doing music, you know, but it just takes time, and it's a roadblock at the moment. It just simply is trying to find enough gap of a time to be able to devote a week to it so that I can get over those barriers and get those sort of things done. Or I could just, you know, really lower the bar on my own expectations of what these videos are about, and maybe that's part of it as well. So it may, I mean, for instance, the last videos I did, which were on ASIO for all on both the Surface Pro 6 and the Surface Go, they were going to form part of my performance video, but I thought hard about it. I could just about squeeze that out into a video of its own, and it will at least allow me to get something done and get something out there. So that's what I did. Next up, I can't seem to get around doing this performance video, and the performance video has to be all encompassing. It has to cover multiple DAWs, it has to cover multiple projects, it has to cover 2 different surfaces, and even the last generation Surface, to do that as a comparison. So do you see there's an awful lot of work involved in that? And I'm getting there, I'm chipping away at it, but the other thing is that if something doesn't work, for instance, the last lot of performance testing I did on the Surface Pro 6, I got some great results, and then it went down the pan, and I wasn't able to find out exactly why. And then I came back the next day, and it's all fine again. And it's those sorts of things that make it difficult to put out a definitive video, because it's not always as consistent as you want it to be. I mean, at some point I just have to take a stab and make it done and present that, and that's what I aim to do. And I aim to do it soon. Soon when? I don't know. I have a very, very busy March, but I'm seeing what I can do. I need to get something out there because I appreciate that people who support me for the Surface and come to me for testing on the Surface are feeling a little bit shortchanged at the moment. I feel that, man. I do feel that. I'm aware of it, so please don't give up on me. I will be doing it very soon. One thing I will be doing is, which we'll probably talk about later, is that I will be taking the Surface Pro 6 to Thomann with me. I've been invited to this Thomann Synth Reaktor event thingy, and so I'm going to be taking some recording gear on the Surface with me to do some field recordings to test out how well that goes. So that'll be another video about something I'll be able to throw in there. But I might talk about the Thomann thing in a bit. So that, I hope that clears up the Surface thing. It's all there, poised, ready for really great stuff. I've just got to squeeze it in. I mean, everything, all the videos have suffered recently because I've just had a huge amount of work to get through, which is good. It's good to have work. It is. But it does make the video side suffer because, unfortunately, something like Patreon and the advertising I get from YouTube is great. It's helpful, but it's not enough to let me give up my day job, and do this full time. Not by a long shot, unfortunately. So it's all helpful. It's all really, really great. But it's still a part-time, in my spare time kind of thing. But I'll do what I can, and I'll keep at it. I'll keep going at it. I promise. Simon. Thomann. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit. I don't want to do it yet. I'm not drunk enough. Okay. That That reverb's not bad at all. Good, thank you. I think it's excellent. I think it works. I don't really see a need for me to get anything else. I know people love the Big Sky Strymon thing, and that's great. I can see the value in that, but I don't generally mess about a reverb just at the moment. I'm more focused in just having a bit there, and that seems to do that nicely. But you know, whatever sort of floats to the top in order to play with, I think that's interesting. But I don't have the money for another reverb just at the moment. Pipe it all through the Eric Essence DSP. I do. I am, and I have. Actually, I have it on because I have a Make Noise Rosie at the end of my signal chain that has a send and return. So I do it through a send, which just allows me to control the amount of reverb that's there. So for instance, when I did my gig last month, whenever that was, it was to start with all reverb masses all over the place, and I was able to just dial that down very easily, which is very helpful to be able to do that. Otto Machines, yeah. Any date for Traction Waveform 10 review? No date for it, no, but I do have it. I do have it. I mean, that's another one. I mean, you know, this is I guess part of this is a window into how I do things. But to review a DAW, that takes time, man, because you have to get into it. You got to be re-recording music. You can't. I mean, you know, if you read some reviews on some blogs, you just essentially get a regurgitating of the marketing material and someone who says, oh yeah, all right, that's pretty good. That doesn't work for me. I have to actually use it and then be able to demonstrate how you use it, because I think that's what a review should do. It doesn't have to be a tutorial, I appreciate that, but you have to show what it is about this DAW that's good, that's interesting, that's different. And just reciting the marketing, that's not good enough for me. So Waveform 10, yes, it's on my radar, although, you know, Waveform 8 was and Waveform 9 was. But Waveform 10, definitely, just because it's got a 10 on it, you know, that makes all the difference in the world. But I do plan to spend some time with that soon. I mean, it's not going to be for a month, I shouldn't think. But soon, there's some interesting stuff in there. I'd really like Waveform. Parts of me likes Waveform. Other parts of me goes, oh, it's just so complex. But there's got some really interesting stuff in there. Really interesting stuff. The whole plugin chaining, the whole mapping out modular plugins, routing signal from places to places, and the LFOs you drag in. Phenomenal, man. Nothing else does that. You know, I'm spending a lot of time in Studio One at the moment because I'm writing about that for Sound on Sound magazine, and there's bits in there that you think, oh wow, if only I could modulate that. You know, like I can with Bitwig, like I can with Traction. You know, I really like the way Traction have stuck a modulation engine within their thing, and it's always been there. It's been in there forever. LFOs, whatever you like, wherever you like, control stuff. Easy. Yeah. Oh, okay. Moving on. Da, ba, ba. James, good to see you. Welcome to this place. Yes, I don't ever disappoint, so you'll be fine. Okay, you'll be fine. You have 3 distings. Did you say that last time? Did I take the piss out of you last time? If not, I can do so. No, I won't do so now. That's a lovely thing that you have 3 distings. I find that horrifying, terrifying. I would probably just go slowly mad. But I know that it works for most people. And I should say at this point, put my disclaimer in that I can be extremely rude to people, and it's not from a bad place. It's not because I'm a horrible person. It's because, well, sometimes it's funny, sometimes we're a little bit drunk, and it's just because I love you all, and people who love and respect each other just poke each other a bit, and that's okay. And it is absolutely okay for me to really not like something, or not, well, probably as I don't really understand something, therefore I don't like something, and for you to like that and to have a completely different view. That's completely fine. So me, I have a disting, I appreciate its worth, but I don't like it. And you are okay to like it. That's fine. And I don't mind that. I just might take the piss a little bit. Because I had a little trouble today with some guy. Yeah, okay, let's talk about this. The SP2400. Is that what it is? Yeah. This image that was floating around of the SP2400, it was a 3D render of a PCB with a bunch of outputs on it and filters. And it said things like filter on it and outputs on it. And the internet jumped up and down on it saying, oh, look, it's a sampler. Behringer are releasing a sampler. Of course it'll be Behringer because they're the people who do this sort of thing. And that made sense. So I wrote it up for Gear News and said, yeah, look, looks like Behringer might be releasing a thing. It's got loads of outputs. There was an EMU sampler called the SP1200, strange looking desktop thing with faders on it. Back from like 1980 something crazy, you know, before there was anyone had any right having samplers knocking around the place. But so this SP2400 looked like it was going to be a evolution or a clone or a successor to that, but all you had was this PCB render, not a whole lot going on. Anyway, so then this guy popped up, Ken Flux, I believe his name is, interesting name, and said, yeah, all right, there, we did that, and here's a few more photos. Well, not photos, a few more renders. And he's talked about it and given us just a tiny bit more information to tell us that it's not Behringer and it's not Roseman Electro Music either, or Akai. It's somebody else, but he's not going to tell us who that is. So I wrote that up for Gear News, and I was a little bit sarcastic about it, saying, well, you know, who's this guy? What does he know? And maybe it's just all some kind of, you know, crazy, cynical way to attract attention to himself. Who knows? I put out there. Anyway, so he replied to my article saying, oh, you're a bit rude. And it's true, I can be, but I mean it through the lens of investigation, through the lens of trying to unearth what the heck is going on and to voice the things that most people perhaps are thinking. Because there's no evidence that this thing exists at all. There's no sound examples. There's no actual reality to it other than a 3D computer-generated render. There's not even a photo of a bit of circuitry. So it could just be nothing. Who knows? We don't know. So why should we automatically assume that it's all legit and fine and it's just about to appear when there's no evidence to say that any of that is remotely real? So anyway, I didn't mean to upset the guy, and I'm sure he's completely on the level. I just, you know, just wanted to point out that it could all just be nonsense. I think that's my job, isn't it? I don't know. 1 second. Just turning my heater off. It's getting a bit warm in here. What? Simon, that sounded kind of lonely. What's lonely? My family situation, my home life, working in the shed every day for hours, trying to find my way through. I don't know, maybe. Loneliness and solitude, yes. Andrew, you made it. Well done. You're in here. Look, it's only half an hour gone. You're well early, mate. Well early. Right, okay. Stepping down through some comments then. Yeah, no, I know there's a cheat sheet for the disting. It doesn't make any difference. I have the manual. I can read the manual and I know what it does. It doesn't make it any more of a pleasurable experience, because if I need to access the disting and the functions, I can find out what they are. Although the manual is a bit impenetrable, I have to say. So a crib sheet, cheat sheet, whatever, is probably better. I can see that, but it's not going to redeem it. It's not going to redeem it. I mean, you could say that it just spews money out of its sockets and it still won't redeem it for me. You're going to have to live with the idea that I don't like it very much. Right, so what's the name of my reverb again? Erica Synth's DSP. I don't have any idea how I do it either, David. Oh, and also if you're new to this kind of live stream thing, then there is like a massive delay between what I say and the comments, so we're always going back on ourselves and repeating ourselves. But I don't really care. I just get stuck in. And if I miss anything, if you've got a burning question, then feel free to ask it more than once, because I'm sort of flicking through the comments and I won't always see anything. I'm not trying to deliberately ignore you or anything of that kind. I'm just doing my best. Drinking from a glass, yes, I am. Only because it came in a can. Look, see, it came in a can, and if I drink from a can, I tend to dribble. There we go. Have I had any stability issues with waveform? I hear it tends to crash a bit. No, there was somebody on left a comment on my Molten Monthly, I think it was, about how they were having terrible problems with the instruments. I have to say that the Traction instrument, the implementation of them, is a little quirky. Doesn't always work quite as you expect, perhaps. I mean, I've got all the retro mod stuff as well, which I really like, but some of the installation of that was a little bit strange, if I remember rightly. I mean, it all works eventually. Same with Biotech. Biotech can be a little bit strange. excuse me, they're never quite sure exactly whether you got that right or not, and then does it come up, and then where are the presets, and then, so, you know, their installation procedures on their software are not the smoothest, I have to say. So maybe that's something to do with it. I don't know, but I have installed, have I installed 10? Well, obviously, if I haven't, I should. But no, I haven't. Well, I certainly haven't installed the collection of instruments that go with it yet. No. I've only just got the installer, so I haven't quite got there yet. But certainly, I will check that out and see what occurs. But more commonly, I mean, I don't know about you, but my desktop machine over there is stuffed full of plugins from 20 years that get in the way. I mean, most DAWs have blacklisted all the ones that do the bad stuff, which is fine, because I don't even know which ones they are now, because I just ignore them, I suppose. But when you install a new DAW, it usually has to crash its way through that a few times until it sort of purges all of the crap ones, and then I go, oh, I really must make a note of that one that crashes so I can just uninstall it, and then I forget, and then it's there for the next time. It's all good fun though, isn't it? Can I test which DAW has better CPU optimization by trying several instances of the same third-party plugin and see which one supports more? Possibly, but that is also quite, well, I mean, a couple of things there. First of all, it's extraordinarily time-consuming in order to do that, to do the same test across multiple DAWs. And also, it rarely really works because it gets frustrating. Are you using the same? Because there's a lot of things in play. There's latency, there's buffer size, there's false behind the scenes buffer sizes, there's the resolution that the DAW works in, there's the time factor, as I said. Or I mean, to create a useful test, it's just difficult, because you want to test with things that people actually use, and if you're not careful, it becomes a test of the virtual instrument, and you don't get enough resolution because you can only load a couple of them. And so, you know, in one DAW you can load one, in another DAW you can load two. You know, that's great, but the chances are that there's a huge variation between that, and you need something which is a smaller level of CPU usage so that you can get a higher resolution of test, if that makes sense. But all of this just adds to the time and the length of time it takes to test these sorts of things. What I do aim to do in my head, whether I can actually make that happen or not, I don't know, is to gradually go through each DAW one at a time. Once I've got these flipping performance tests out of the way, which will be in Cubase and Ableton, probably. Cubase for the DAW bench type test and the Halley polyphony test, although the Halley polyphony test is difficult. That's the one I usually use, but there's not enough room on the Surface Go to install the Halley library. So I'm having to kind of rethink that a little bit, but I'll come up with something else that I can do. Anyway, that's transferable from one machine to another, but then you get from one DAW to another. I use the same plugins. For instance, you can't cross-test Pro Tools because Pro Tools uses a different plugin architecture, and although there are similar plugins available, or the same plugins available, because it's on a different architecture, you can't actually say whether that's a good comparison or not. I have to say, trying to say something definitive about what you can or cannot run on a Windows machine is hard. I mean, no one ever does it on the Apple Mac because for some reason us Windows users are completely fascinated by this level of performance thing. On Apple, you make your music, you add your plugins until it goes and then you stop adding plugins and get on with your life, you know. Whereas on Windows, we want to know how many plugins, how many versions of this, how many instances of this can I run, etc., etc. And that's quite hard work to do. But I'll try, mate. I'll try. I will try, yes. I'll see what I can do. And will that help anybody? I don't know. Because, I mean, the other thing with the Surface in particular is that there is a level of inconsistency because the processor for something like the Surface, for any laptop or tablet PC, it's designed not to work. It's designed to step down and stop working as often as humanly possible in order to conserve the magic that is battery power. So you often get inconsistent results. So much so that really you have to sit down and do your testing and then move on. Because if you come back to it the next day, you'll probably get different results. And the next day, different again. Not massively different, just a bit different. And that can get very frustrating. So when you're trying to test a lot of different DAWs on the same platform that you've got to install and get on there, and other times you've got to take them off because there's not enough room, and then you've got to keep all that going. It can take days and days, and then those inconsistencies start to go in, and you're not really getting a fair comparison. Have I really painted this as darkly yet as I mean to? So yeah, yes, I will attempt to do cross-DAW testing to see which one does best. I'll have a go, but I'm not making any promises that it will come out with anything useful. Because ultimately, I think your choice of DAW is probably not based upon how many plugins it will run. It's probably based on the workflow. And so the number of actual plugins it can run is less important, I think. Right, so what was I saying? Da da da, la di da. Ba ba ba. Flux is legit. Okay, cool. Fair enough. But can you see the reason why I queried it? Is that allowed? Am I allowed to query something which has no evidence of anything? Does that make sense? Can you see where I'm coming from with that? I mean, 99% of the article was, oh, this guy, and this is what this guy's saying. Isn't that great? That's interesting, and all this stuff. And then a little tiny bit at the end saying, but, he might be just full of nonsense. Who knows? And that's, of course, that's the bit that he grasps and goes, oh, I've been cut to the heart with this comment from this man. What does he know? I don't know. There we go. Ba ba ba. Oh, he's an honest and amazing friend to the community. Excellent. So, so now what I'm going to sense is that I've poked someone who has a halo and a reputation, and it's like I've been poking Mother Teresa. All right, so maybe we should move on and not talk about this anymore. I'm just terribly, evidently, I'm devastated and sorry about the whole affair, because he's so legit. Which I'm sure he is, and no one ever said that he wasn't. I was just suggesting, well, maybe this whole thing is so that he can sell a few sample CDs. It was an outrageous statement, obviously put forward as an outrageous statement. Oh, crikey. Anyway. Ba ba ba. Yeah, don't spam a live stream with your links, man. Oh, you can, I don't mind. Whatever you like. But, take yourself off into a private room and talk about it. Maybe that's better. Matthew Pye, thanks for pointing out I'm streaming at the same time as DivKid. No, I'm not. See, the thing is with that is that I announced my live stream for 8 p.m. This Sunday. I announced it last week, days before DivKid came up with his live stream at 8 p.m. So being the lovely guy that I am, I thought, I'll bump it up an hour, and that way people can do both. But if DivKid runs on for a couple of hours, then there's nothing I can do about that, unfortunately. And I don't mean to be in competition with him. There's nothing intentional about that. Nothing intentional from him either. It just happens. Sunday night's a good night for a live stream because often you're not doing anything else. So it works. But it's unfortunate that we're on at the same time. But I absolutely did know that. And I put that all the way out there saying that we're on the same time as DivKid. So we've moved it an hour. So yeah, fully aware. Thank you. Fully aware. Oh, have I got to the bottom of the comments? That probably means I missed something. Okay, the 303 is on the Roland Cloud now. Yes, I saw that this morning. Interesting. Because it's 303 day. Happy 303 day. Isn't it nice how our days are now numbered by gear? By gear serial numbers. Now we could probably run a whole calendar on the thing. I don't know. I don't know if anybody's out there is connected with Roland, has any idea what it is they think they're doing. Everybody knows. Everybody knows that we want a reissue of the TB303 and the drum machines, and we want them at a really good Behringer type price. We just want to have Roland stamped on them because that would be the holy grail, And I just get the feeling that Roland believe they've done it. I think they genuinely believe that they have provided us with everything that we want. I think they sit there in meetings and go, wow, look at that. See, we gave them a flipping 303 in the TB03. We did that already. Isn't it awesome? And it's, slightly better, and it's a thing, and it's, a wonderful boutique form factor that everybody adores. Isn't that awesome? And we should be grateful, really. And now, of course, they've taken the technology from the TB03, pulled it back out again, stuck it up as a plug-in, and called it the TB303 again, because they can, because it's not so different, or something, because we accept it. That's interesting. We accept a VST version of it under the right name, but a hardware version, we don't accept that if it's not what it is. And so that has to be called something different. It has to be called the TB03 as opposed to the TB303, because it's not analog, it's digital. But then when it's in software land, it then becomes a TB303. Isn't that interesting? Is it? I don't know. But so yes, today they released a software version of the beloved bassline onto the Roland Cloud, which you can get for $20 a month. I mean, there's a heck of a lot of stuff on Roland Cloud now that makes it pretty worth it. I mean, 20 quid ain't bad for what they're offering. And back when they released it, it seemed a bit of a stretch, but these days, cool, crikey, you can get a lot of stuff, if that's what you're into. But yes, of course, we would all love a proper TB303. Would we? Apparently we would. That's the general feeling of the community, is that we would, and that the TB03 doesn't quite cut it. I mean, it sounds obviously identical. It works identically. It's fabulous, but it's not a TB303, and so we're not happy yet. But a software one will do. I mean, that's something, I suppose. Although, I mean, I did comment that they've added an editor to it so that you can now expand the interface and edit the patterns directly. Now that I find that a little odd, because, I mean, great, it's super that you can get easier editing of the sequencer on the TB303, because the sequencer on the TB303 was a bit of a thing, a bit of a toughie, hard to get into, I find. But the thing that comes along with that, when something is difficult to use and you have hurdles to get over, and it takes a little bit of time and thought, it means you end up quite learning that instrument quite well. I mean, my experience, hands up, my experience, I've never programmed a TB303 in my life, have I? I've played on one, yes, but my main experience for the TB303 comes from Propellerhead's Rebirth. Played on that an awful lot, heck of a lot. Got a lot out of that, loved it, absolutely fantastic piece of software that I still grieve that has gone from our lives. But I found in programming the TB303 in that you never quite got out the other end what you were expecting. What you were trying to put in never actually emerged. Something else always did, because the sequencer was tricky and you got lost. Did I put an accent in? Did I put a space in? I can't remember. Did I? Oh, which note am I on? That kind of experience. And so out the other end, you would get this half-planned accidental pattern. But that was good, because it always sounded good and interesting, and you would pursue it and you would change what you were doing depending on the pattern that emerged, and that kind of workflow pushed you into being creative with what you had. Whereas now you can edit the pattern so that it's perfect. What is the use of that? Perfection is never going to help. Never going to help you produce something interesting and inspiring and enlightening. So I think I understand why Roland have done that. I think for a lot of people that's going to be great, because you can get exactly the sort of sound you want out of, but it's just not in the spirit of the TB303. But there we go, TB303 online now through Roland Cloud. Fantastic. There's Jupiter 8s up there, there's drum machines, all sorts of stuff, D50s, the whole lot. It's an extraordinary collection of instruments these days. I know, I'm sorry. Sorry about the Mother Teresa comment. I am really genuinely sorry. But I don't mean what you think I mean. That's for sure. Jim Shannon on sounds. Hi, how you doing? And thank you for coming from DivKid show. I hope that was awesome over there, and I hope you left before the end in order to come to me, because that would make me smile. MB3 support in Ableton, yeah. Has the sideburn growing back? I don't know. A little bit. Thanks for asking. um, the Synapse Audio Orion DAW, seriously underrated. Interesting. Okay. I haven't looked at that myself, I have to say. You've been impressed with the stability of Cubase 10? Have I tried 10 of Cubase? Yes, I have. It's good. Cubase has, in my view of things, really taken a few good steps recently. Since they reworked the interface. I mean, because Cubase had turned into this thing where there was just windows for everything. You didn't know. You'd go through window after window after window trying to find where it was the thing that you were trying to do was in. So adopting a more of a dynamically placed window thing, like what Studio One does, like what Traction does, like what many others do, was a very positive thing, I thought. There's still a lot of windows involved. I still don't really know whether I should load a VST instrument as a track or as a rack half the time. Little things like that just sort of boggle me a little bit. But on the whole, no, Cubase has been... it's almost always been the piece of software I don't use. It's like the other one. Like, I mean, when I started out, I was a Logic user on Windows, of course, and I would use Logic. But of course I knew about Cubase because I had to demonstrate it to people and show people how to use it. So I knew both, but I used Logic. And nearly all the way through my career, I've been using another DAW when I actually make music, but I have always had Cubase going alongside as well. And there was a time when there really wasn't anything else. Before Studio One got to version 3, for instance, Cakewalk had disappeared up his own backside. There was no digital performer, Bitwig and things like that, and I couldn't touch Ableton because that seemed to be, I wasn't hipster enough for Ableton. I'm a bit more hipster these days, you know, groomy beard, that kind of thing. I bought a launch pad, so, you know, I got a bit more groovy and into it. But before that, then, yeah, I went through Cubase for a few years, but then, as I say, now it's kind of more of an aside, and I use it, I install it on a lot of people's systems and test it out, that kind of thing, but I don't use it in a day-to-day capacity. But no, I think Cubase has done a lot of things right. What I would like to see is... well, I like to see more hardware synthesizer orientated stuff inside. It's like Studio One and their pattern thing. Genius. Well, it's not genius. It's obvious. It's not genius. It's like, yeah, where the heck have you been? So that kind of pattern-based step sequencing and interesting starting to bring in randomization, probability, that kind of stuff that comes out of hardware all the time. I'd like to see more of that indoors, and Cubase needs to embrace some of that. I mean, just to have like a Tenori, you know, the Yamaha square thing with all the lights on, just something like that built in would be brilliant. You know, I kept trying to find something like that because I just thought it was such a lovely tool just to paste up a whole bunch of lights, which is essentially a piano roll, yeah, kind of, but just in a different way of working. And I really enjoy that kind of thing, a different way of working. And Cubase now, I think Steinberger spent a lot of time really drilling down on the pro audio side to make it a Pro Tools contender, to put in all the posh stuff, all the VCA faders and the drawing the curves and stuff, and that's all nice, that's lovely if you're big into audio. But I'm more interested these days in how you work MIDI differently. Oh, we could talk about MIDI 2.0, could we? I don't know. If you want to talk about MIDI 2.0, so I have some strong opinions on that, throw that in the comments. Meanwhile, I'll see what else you've been talking about. That is strong beer, I have to say. I'm only halfway through it, and I'm already going a bit, so I better have some more. What do I think of Reason 10.2? Is the point 2 important? Let me know, and I'll think about it, because version 10, yeah, sure, good, great, lots of good stuff in there, I think. What was the stuff that came in with 10? Was it VST support, or was that in 9.98? So yeah, tell me what's good about it, and I'll see if I can remember. Yeah, well, don't listen to DivKid as well. Just listen to this one. No, sure, do what you like. Yes, let's talk about MIDI 2.0, he says. Yeah, okay, then I'll talk about the Thomann thing, because otherwise I'll forget. Or maybe, oh, who knows. Let's do the Thomann thing first, because it's nearly been an hour, and let's get stuck into that. So, yeah, I got this invitation to the Thomann Synth Reaktor. Now, what is that? Well, Thomann is an enormous music shop in Germany, where some of us probably buy things from time to time. When I used to work at a turnkey music shop back in the 90s and noughties, Thomann was the enemy. They were this big music shop that came out of nowhere and were undercutting everything. They stuck these massive catalogues and adverts into Sound on Sound magazine and were going, what are these guys doing? And we were constantly on the phones with people going, no, well, you know, you buy from Germany and, you know, crazy shipping charges, and then there's bound to be some kind of import tax, which of course was all nonsense, because they'd usually ship for free. And of course, it's in the EU. I mean, you know, for now. So they did a blooming good job of putting the wind up turnkey. So that was fun. But, you know, years roll by and Thomann are still there and they're doing a great job. I mean, I visited them many years ago when I was running Carillon audio systems, because they were going to become a Carillon distributor and they were going to build them there. So I went over there to try to teach them how to build computers, which was quite funny. So we went to this village that they own pretty much, into this enormous place that was just, I mean, it was me and the bosses of Turnkey went along, and we were, because the funny thing is that the Turnkey music store, a famous Turnkey music store, which is no longer there, of course, in London at the time, was just a couple of floors. You know, it was tiny. It was about the size of a Waterstones, and we thought we were the biggest thing in Europe, you know, which at the time we probably were. But this Thomann store was just enormous. Just enormous. I mean, even from everything from down to checking your bags in at the start, because, you know, the security we had at Turnkey was just a bloke who would give random sort of cloakroom tickets out of people that didn't mean anything and take their bags off them and then beat them up on the way out. Anyway, so yeah, I took a Carillon along, tried to show them how to make them, and they never really went for it, because it's I mean, building computers is a really difficult thing. Not difficult to do necessarily, although that's an aspect of it, but difficult in terms of supply and licensing and how you logistically actually do that to any sort of large number. And it's a really difficult sell. Anyway, forward back to today, and here we are. I get this invitation to the Thomann Synth Reaktor. So Thomann, this big music shop in Germany. Yes, great. So what are they doing? Last year they put on this thing for a bunch of guitar YouTubers and influencers called Gear University or something. So all these people went over to Thomann, and Thomann entertained them for a weekend and gave them stuff to play with, some gear. They brought, you know, Fender and probably Gibson, if they were around at the time, came in and talked to them, and they got just a whole load of access to all this stuff. And then they had video studios, were able to make videos about it, and videos went on YouTube, and everyone went, wow, that's great. So they're going to do the same thing this year, but with synthesizers. So there's about 24 or 25 of us been invited across to Thomann to spend 4 days playing on their stuff, whatever we like. We can do whatever we like, make videos about whatever we like. I mean, DivKid's going, Bo Beats is going, Gaz from Sonic State's going, Simon and Magpie was on here a minute ago, he's going, Doris Jamming, Lady Jade is going, Look No Mum Computer, Look Mum No Computer Geezer is going. Cuckoo's going, anyway, a whole bunch of people, all of which you would know, and none of which I don't think have probably heard of me. I think I kind of got in through like a joker, like a wild card selection, because I work for Gear News. Gear News is a news site that actually further up the chain is owned by Thomann, so I kind of have a slight connection that way. Although I don't work for them directly, I do by proxy. if that makes sense. And so I have, I've chatted to Thomann people before, and over Skype and that kind of thing, and they're actually really nice people. And the guy who runs it, he seems really switched on and into stuff. Genuinely just excited and enthusiastic about music technology and all that sort of thing. So whatever your experience of that shop is, I know from having worked at the management levels of music shops that actually underneath it all, you're just really into the gear and into talking about it and into doing stuff with it. Customer service is a whole other thing, and it involves human beings and other bits and pieces, and you may have had your own bad experience of something, but that doesn't necessarily reflect on the people behind the business. So all I'm just trying to say is that the experience I've had with people at Thomann is that they're actually really great. So I'm looking forward and have no reservations at all about going along to this thing. I mean, there's lots of discussion about whether, there's going to be brands there, and are we going to be pushed into making videos about stuff that we're not really that happy about. I don't honestly think that will happen. That seems weird to me. And I think you, the discerning viewer, will be able to see what's genuine and what's not. And I don't think that any of us or anybody wants anything that's not genuine. And I don't think that people are really going to be pushed into doing anything of the kind. I mean, we already feel terribly awkward about doing a 1 minute little video for Thomann so they can create a promo. Thomann just want to do a promo video where we all say the same thing, so they cut in and out of different people, and we're all finding that desperately hard to do because we feel so stupid. But there we go. I mean, I think that's all right. I don't think that's massively a difficulty. We just have to get on with it because it's kind of fun, and it should be promoted, and it should be fun, and we should get over ourselves perhaps a little bit. I mean, undoubtedly, I want to talk to the guys at Korg. I want to talk to them about the mini log and other bits and pieces and see how that goes. And I want to have a try on it, and then I want to talk about it in a video. Will I be extra nice because Korg are there? I don't know, but why would I be nasty? I'm not ever nasty. I mean, I can be rude about something, but I'm not deliberately nasty. I don't think there's any reason for that. I just want to talk about my experience of something as it happens. So if I'm playing on a synth and getting the hang of it or not getting the hang of it, I'll talk about those aspects of that. The other thing is we'll get an opportunity to work with each other, to make videos together about stuff. How that's going to work, I don't have any idea. No clue. Because, I mean, I know I may seem outward going and gregarious on videos and stuff. I'm really not in person. I'm completely, I'm quite shy, quite awkward, but if somebody talks to me, I'll quite happily talk back with great relief. So I don't think I'm planning to be the life and soul of the party. I mean, someone suggested I should be playing pranks on the other YouTubers. No, that's just not my vibe, man. I don't feel remotely capable. I'm more likely to say something which in my head sounds hilarious, right? That just causes the entire room to go quiet. That's more likely. Yeah, that's more likely. Saying something just stupid, because I'm trying in an instant to appear cool or something. That's always when it goes horribly wrong for me. So I will do my best just to try to be myself, which probably means I'll be drinking a lot of beer. So what was I saying? Yeah, so the whole gist of this thing is that it's in a couple of weeks, I think, more or less. We go there for 4 days, we play on a load of gear, we make a load of videos. That's it. There may be some brands sponsoring on the video because somebody has paid for it all, and that's all right. But we're just going to be doing our thing and making videos. And if there's something particularly you'd like me to have a go on, then do let me know. I mean, hopefully there'll be a Moog 1 I'll be able to play on. That'd be great. I want to play on all the Korg gear, the Korg Modular, Volca thing, and the Minilog XD. I want to find out all about that third digital oscillator and how that works and all those sort of things. I want to play on the Behringer Crave. I want to play on the Microfreak. I want to, get someone from Arturia in a corner and beat them until they tell me whether they're going to actually release any Eurorack modules. That would be really good. Dotefa's going to be there. I'd like to talk to them about their naming convention. All sorts of people are going to be there, and I think that's going to be very useful. And I'll get to play some stuff. Maybe, I mean, one of the interesting things is that Behringer, Korg, and Roland are all there. I think that's an interesting selection of people. that we could be comparing Odysseys and drum machines and bits and pieces. I think that's quite interesting. I don't know what that will reveal, but questions could be asked. We'll all be too shy. I'll be far too shy to ask really challenging questions, I imagine. But it'll be interesting nonetheless. So yeah, so look out for that. I mean, I'm sure it will generate some interesting content. Hopefully it won't be too hackneyed or forced. It will just be natural and usual. I mean, they have these video studios, right, where they have multiple cameras set up and people working them. And the idea is that they will shoot the video and you get it on an SD card at the end of the day, and then you upload it yourself or whatever, and it's all pre-cut and ready to go. But the thing is, they have no idea how I make videos. I make videos by talking for about 10 seconds and then coughing, sniffing, or going or mussing it up. And so the reason why my videos, other than my live streams, but my regular videos are so cut, is not to reduce time, it's to cut out all the crap. So if they're doing multiple camera live cutting, it's going to still require ages and ages of editing to sort that out. So I'm not going to have anything ready for broadcast for months. I shouldn't think afterwards. But hopefully there'll be some live stuff we can do. Hopefully we can do a live stream from it. For reasons I have no idea. I don't really know how it's going to work. I don't know how I'm going to feel inspired. Because one of the questions I've got is that, or the difficulties I have is that when I review something, if I talk about something, a piece of gear, I work really hard on it. You know, that's my thing. That's why I don't produce anywhere near as many videos as I should, because I work too hard on stuff. So the idea that Behringer will give me a crave and I go 5 minutes and then have something to say, that seems incredibly unlikely. I'd need to play with it for a couple of days, you know, work my way through it, open the manual, work my way through that before I can really then offer an opinion on something. I don't know. I'm just going to have to see how it goes, because I don't imagine I'm going to have the time to do all of that. But there is a golf course. I haven't played golf in years. Right, so that was the Thomann thing. That's in a couple of weeks. It's called Thomann Synth Reaktor, so do look out for it. There'll be a whole load of people talking about it. That it'll be all over the place, because we'll all be there. And it's been really interesting talking to these people, because I've started to chat online, and it's going to be fascinating, you know, having a beer and chatting about stuff. And feeling, as I do, already completely out of my depth, because I don't really know enough. Don't feel that I do, because these people talk in synthesizer language, you know, and I don't know. I can't seem to retain that kind of information in my head. I'm almost like a goldfish, where I come to everything afresh, which is nice in some ways. You know, I come with a renewed enthusiasm for bits of gear, but it does mean that I'm struggling to draw on years of experience of any kind of anything. I mean, I can't... never mind. Let's have a look at something else then. Is it pronounced Thomann, like Thomas? I've always known that it was. There's a discussion about it, whether it's Thomann or Thomann. I don't really care. It's just been Thomann to me, and that's been since knowing about them when they first started. But no one's ever sat me down and told me how to pronounce it. And as you know, I don't really get upset about pronunciations. I find them generally funny and just go with whatever seems to work. Treppendorf is the village, yes, indeed. George Cassidy? Yeah, you that guy who I punched at Turnkey because you asked for a different sort of cable after I spent 10 minutes finding the right cable for you and then put it down and you said that wasn't the right one, so I punched you in the nose. That was probably you, wasn't it? Yeah, and then we took you out down the alleyway and sort of beat you up. Because those were the days, it was dangerous days. It was the Wild West back at Turnkey and Charing Cross Road. The Waldorf Quantum, yeah. Quantum, yeah, okay, Quantum, yeah. That and the Kira. I mean, Waldorf make serious synthesizers that have never particularly appealed to me. As such, I mean, I remember the Pulse and the Wave and bits and pieces like that. It's just, I don't know, just a bit too serious, not fat enough. Something, I guess, wavetable, a bit like graphic VCO over here. That, yeah, I don't really get on with that necessarily, but it will be interesting. What I did used to like was their filter. I used to have their filter in the demo room in Turnkey, and you'd just run stuff through that and break speakers with it. It was awesome. How about Andertons? How about guitar and keyboard? Oh, sorry, click that. Yeah, or PMT. Yeah, all good music shops, no doubt. No doubt. Oh, that's nice. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. See, that's beautiful. That could go on a t-shirt. Or it could at least be a Facebook meme. That's lovely. Thank you for that. There's no th sound. There's always a T, says Andrew. Thank you for that. Okay. Okay, is that me at the bottom of comments again? Yes, good, okay. If there's anything that I haven't answered that you've got burning desire for, then please stick it in as a comment again, because I'm not going to rewind backups. It just takes me forever. What was the other thing I was going to talk about? MIDI 2.0. Oh, yes, MIDI 2.0. Yes, interesting. MIDI 2.0 seems to be crawling along at the pace of a couple of snails that are putting against each other. So it seems. And I got thinking about this because they talked about how they had a report. I got a report through from NAMM that they talked about prototyping and implementation, and everyone got together, and it's all a really exciting time. And the thing that just sort of grew in the back of my mind is that who is this for? This MIDI 2.0. You know, who has a MIDI 2.0 hole in their workflow? You're sitting down there, you know, with your keyboard going, hey look, I've got a keyboard here, look at this. Look at that, that's an M32, that is, Native Instruments. Oh yes. Oh yes. You can't buy these yet. No, I think you can now. Oh, rats. But yeah, you know, I'm playing a keyboard, I'm recording songs, turning knobs, automation, that kind of thing. Am I missing something? That's sort of my question, really. I mean, there's nothing wrong with developing something, evolving something. And one of the brilliant things about MIDI 2.0 actually is how much care they're taking with MIDI 1. That they are really ring-fencing it, looking after it, making sure it's coming along for the ride so that everything still works. I think that is just blooming brilliant. Whoever decided to push that through, that is, you know, that deserves a round of applause. But all of the other stuff, how much do I need that? Here's my question. I mean, MPE, we already do MPE through MIDI 1. I mean, because they're clever, the MPE guys. It all writes down different MIDI channels, and so spreads those notes around. You can do individual control over notes. It already works. So having that built into MIDI 2.0 and doing it differently, I don't actually see how that's necessary. Also with things like NKS, with the Akai VIP software, with the stuff that Nectar does with their controller keyboards, we already sort of have automatic mapping to all sorts of things that already works. I mean, it's not seamless or blind particularly, but you know, it's there for people who need it. And I mean, the other thing you'll find that if you have a MIDI controller and you have a software synth that you use a lot of, you are going to make those connections yourself, and there's something in making those connections that makes it more deliberate, and that you find out about your synth because you're making those connections and those MIDI mappings, and you're having a deeper time with that synthesizer. If it's all automatic and all done for you, you are probably going to miss bits of it. Is that too simplistic? I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to say is that we've been using MIDI for 35 odd years now, and we play stuff and we turn knobs and it goes in, it's recorded, we can edit it, and it comes back out again. I'm not sure exactly what MIDI 2.0 is actually offering. Now I know what it's offering. I know exactly what they're saying that it's offering. It has a two-way communication thing. It's going, oh, what are you? Oh, I'm a bit of a synth with this. Oh, great. Let's use this template. And then that all works. That's great. And I can see that being useful. And what I imagine will happen, hopefully, it will be so seamless that you won't even notice it happening and stuff will just start working better. I mean, that's the ideal thing, I think. But in terms of actually needing it or wanting a higher resolution of knob turn, I suppose. But there's an awful lot of energy being expended into trying to create MIDI 2.0 now. That I think it will finally happen. And the cynic in me, that bit that I poke at things, is just like, well, most of this is actually run by the people behind Roly, and so their vested interest is to get MPE into more people's hands, that for their own benefit. But that might be being a little bit too cynical, because actually that's no bad thing. However, MPE is not for everyone. In fact, it's not for that many people, I would say. Because those spongy keyboards, they're funny, man. They need to find other ways of expressing that, I think. Because you can't play a Roly keyboard like it's a piano. That just doesn't work. So you're always going to need an additional controller. And actually, I wonder whether something like the Jouet thing with the knobbly nipples that you squidge about, that maybe that was more appropriate to have something that has that kind of thing alongside your normal piano keyboard. I don't know, but as I say, all that can work on MIDI 1.0. So I don't know. So that was really my question to put out there. That really MIDI 2.0, do we need it? Is it worth all this time and effort? Because MIDI by itself has always been kind of broken in its own ways, but it does enough. It does enough, doesn't it? I'll just leave that with you. So, anything else? If it works, don't fix it. Yeah, but then, funny enough, I did write this article a couple of years ago called MIDI Sucks. And that got a lot of attention because I suggested that MIDI is a bit crap, which it is, which is why we need MIDI 2.0, which we do. And now I'm saying MIDI 2.0, who needs it? Well, no one, because MIDI 1 is great, isn't it? Maybe I'm just controversial for controversial sake. Controversy sake. Controversy. Yeah, Simon, you missed the Thomann thing. It was awesome. I think I've started a revolution, and we're going to take it from Treppendorf straight to the capital, man. It's going to be awesome. It's going to turn into a 4-week event. And it's a shame that you missed the details because you need to know what's going on, otherwise you won't get on the right bus. How strong is my beer? It's 5.5. Don't often drink a 5.5, I have to say. What do I think about the tracker approach? Now there's a left field question. Thank you, Santa. And thanks for coming along. I mean, it's a bit off season for you, but you've got to be doing something, haven't you, before getting around to wrapping the presents again. What do I think of trackers? I had a tracker on my Commodore 64 many moons ago. Didn't like it then. I still don't really like it now. I think the orientation is interesting. It's kind of layering, isn't it, ultimately, or stacking of stuff. No, it's never really appealed. I'm a graphical person. I like a graphical approach to things very much, and so trackers, to me, at least my experience of them, is very number based. It's kind of like spreadsheeting music, and that doesn't really appeal to me. But then I've never really seen it demonstrated. Maybe that's something that you need to see. There must be something in it that appeals to people. There must be a way of working that takes you away from doing it in some other way, I guess. More than 16 channels would be nice. Yeah, but what is restricting you to 16 channels? 16 channels in a particular single device? I guess if you're using a Yamaha Montage or some of these big workstation synthesizers, you can do 16 channels of stuff, and then you want to do another 16 channels of stuff, I guess, in that same device. I mean, otherwise, do you want 16 sounds, more than 16 sounds coming out of one box of sounds? Because otherwise, you just start on another device. You crack open another port, and you've got another 16 channels, don't you? What's a tracker? Thanks, Andrew. Go to the back of the class. Old Peculiar. God, I haven't had a pint of that in a long time. Oh, look, Mum, No Computer did a video about trackers. Well, a tracker, I mean, I might be completely off here, but a tracker in my mind it tends to work vertically in columns. And in my head, what I see is numbers, kind of like hexadecimal, is defining what the music is doing. Now, that could be completely wrong, but that was the image in my head of it. How about Google it, man? Musical tracker. And it'll is an alternative to a piano roll, you could say. Excuse me. The Winter Modular Eloquenza. I think it's a really interesting box. It's beautiful to look at. I've never quite worked out exactly what it's doing, because it's sort of a sequencer but not a sequencer, as I understand it. But it's a wonderful piece of kit. I've seen it around a lot. I don't have the room for it in mine or the money for it, but it's a nice looking piece of kit. Something I would like to try out one of these days. Maybe that's something I can try out at Thomann. Maybe it is. Yeah, hardly anyone except pro touring musicians are even buying these expensive MIDI keyboards. Maybe. Yeah, I mean, once upon a time, I was well into workstation keyboards. I wanted a Korg T1. I wanted the whole big thing. I mean, when I was working at Turnkey, the JV1080 was your standard synthesizer, and variations like 2080 or the the rack version, the this, that, and the other, and the cards you could stick in the back, where you would get multi-channels of multi-timbralness and polyphony and bunch of sounds, so you could write entire tracks using the one synth. That's just not my bag these days, I have to say. I like one thing to do one thing. I like a thing to do its thing, and just to do only that. It gets frustrating when you want it to do other things, of course, but yeah, those sort of big keyboards, it's like, the classic one is a sequential Prophet X, I think it is, which is, you think, Prophet, Dave Smith, extraordinary stuff, extraordinary synthesizers. Wow, God, I'd like to have one of those. And then the Prophet X comes along and he says, this is just the greatest thing we've ever made ever. And you go, nah, because it's only half a synth and the rest of it's samples. I mean, it's like having a couple of libraries of Contact stuffed onto a keyboard. It's like, who's that for? Well, it's for proper professional musicians who are playing and performing properly. It's the band off David Letterman, or it's the people who are touring and playing stuff for real. Those are the people who need those things, not us idiots knocking around in our sheds and our back bedrooms and the cupboard under the stairs who are playing stuff. We don't need that kind of thing. We like our things individual and difficult, because we're not having to go on the road necessarily, spending our times in a bus surrounded by gear, when you want to minimize your gear down to one keyboard that does everything. I have no idea why we're talking about this. Yeah, fair enough. The 127 values you have with MIDI, and that will be a higher resolution on MIDI 2. Yeah, great, more smoothness. But again, I kind of put that out there. Do we really feel that steppiness? Do we? I mean, because we've had music made on MIDI 1.1 for the last 30, 40 years. And are we all sitting around going, oh, wow, you can really feel the steps on that, mate? Do we? I don't know. I don't know that we do. Maybe we do. I mean, as I say, I said before, rewinding to MIDI 2.0, yeah, it's all good. Let's have it. Yeah, that's great. Bring it on. I'm just not entirely sure, as I say, who is going to massively... Who has a MIDI 2.0 hole in their workflow? That was my question, I think. So, okay, so we're into this about an hour and a half. What else would you like to talk about? Anything else you'd like me to mention? Trying to think if there's anything else that came out. Oh, yes, there's something that came out. Has anybody out there used ALK from Zen Audio, I think it is? That's just made it onto Windows. It's that looping software. Now, there's some amazing performances on YouTube of people using looping software. and doing live loop performances. I mean, there's that woman who plays the drums and then the bass, and she's doing Foo Fighters, and then she plays the keyboard, and it's just the whole thing is completely gorgeous to watch and to listen to. You know, she playing all these different sorts of instruments, and fabulous instruments, and stuff that you want to have in a fabulous room with fabulous lighting and everything else. And she gets to the end of the song, and it kind of, you kind of get this feeling that she's done it 50 times, that this is take 50 and this is the one, and she gets it right, and she just doesn't really give a monkeys by the time the end. It's just like, yeah, whatever, I made it to the end, great, didn't make any mistakes this time. What am I talking about? So yeah, the live performance, live looping, I think is very interesting, and this piece of software ALK2, I don't know, is now available on Windows. It's something I'd really like to try out, and I aim to. I'm going to take it with me to Thomann to give me something to play with when I'm waiting for aeroplanes and things. Although, how am I going to play with it? I'll have to busk. That's what I'll do. So I'll sit in the airport lounge at Schiphol, and I'll start busking in order to test this software. That would be interesting. That would cause a scene, I imagine. But I really like the idea. I like the look of it. I like the way that you can plan out where you're going to record and then when that's going to play back. So the idea is, like a looping pedal, you play a phrase, you hit the button, and then you play something over the top, and what you play before loops in underneath. That's your standard looper pedal. And people, you know, Katie Tunstall, Ed Sheeran, all those sorts of people have used looping pedals to create these great performances that they can do live, and that's great. What this software does is allows you to arrange the song beforehand. So rather than it kind of being improvised on the moment, you have a plan. So you record that take, and then you've already pasted in where that is going to play back, and it allows you to do more complex arrangements. So rather than having loop on, loop, 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 loop off, loop on, loop, 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 that kind of linearity to it and that kind of repetitiveness to it, you can record the loop and then have it play there and then off, and then have other loops come in that you're then recording, and then you have it arranging, coming in all sorts of different places. I think it's very, very clever, although it requires a lot of preparation, and that's not my strong point. Preparation is to actually have a plan and then to stick to it, you know. But I can see that being useful because I like the idea of multi-instruments and doing different things, performing live. Although in some ways you could say, what's the point of doing it live? You might as well just have it as loops. But I think there's something in that live performance. I think people connect when they see you playing an instrument, and I find that interesting. So anyway, I'm going to try that out. I'll be interested in other people's view of it. It's only been available on Mac, so only you idiot Mac users have tried it out previously. I'd like to hear about it because I think that's quite interesting. DivKid's here. How nice. Okay, so we stop slagging off DivKid now because he's here, and it would be unkind to do that now. Oh, it's great. Thanks for stepping in. I'm not quite sure how longer I can maintain this because I'm nearly at the end of my beer and it's quite a strong one. But it's lovely for you to come in. I'm sorry that we clashed. That was really unfortunate. But never mind. We all just roll on. And now I've run out of things to say. See, this is what it's going to be like at Thomann, you see, because important people like DivKid will walk in, and I'll just go blah, 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 and smile inanely in the corner, hoping that something exciting will happen. So what else? In that case, there's no other exciting comments to jump in on. What else has there been? What I can tell you about this, I've got here, also from Native Instruments, is the Audio 2. Now I mentioned this in the Molten Monthly video, both this and the keyboard, saying that there were no drivers available for Windows. And then that day, the driver appeared. I don't think it's quite available to the public yet, because I don't think the Audio 1 and the Audio 2 is available for sale quite. So I do have a little bit of a lead time on that, getting ahead of things, which is nice. So I'm going to be doing a video on that soon. As far as I can tell you straight away is that the driver architecture looks very much like the Audio Fuse, I have to say. The control panel was very, very similar. Same safe mode box, same sort of level of buffer sizes and things. But what I will say is that the complete Audio 6 which is the one they made about 10 years ago, is one of the best interfaces around. It's always had great performance, always had low latency. It's a nice shaped box with a knob on the top, a bit like this, not dissimilar to this, but this is plastic. Yeah, it's not as nice as the Audio 6 by any stretch, but same sort of form factor, and that really, I think, really worked for me. Is a great solution because at the time everybody else was using little 1U kind of rack type interfaces, and so having a big knob and some indications on the top I thought was great, and the Audio 1 and Audio 2 follow that through. So awesome. So I'll be doing a little bit of testing on that as well, amongst all of my blooming surface testing. I'll be doing a bit on that as well, just to give you an idea of what the latency is like and what the performance is like and how good that compares to the Audio Fuse. And that's going to be a useful box because it's USB powered. It just gives you good stereo in and out, so I'm going to be taking that with me to Thomann as well to potentially do some recording and that. So there you go, there's something else. Tell us how you got that cool Hoser glass, said Skull Drazer. Well, out of the blue, right, I started making these videos on Modular bits and pieces, and then Hoser, God bless them, they sent me like a care package. It was almost like a welcome to the community package. And it was a box full of a gazillion cables, like all these here. And it had a cable tester in it. It was a phenomenally useful piece of kit. And a glass. Trying to think if it had a t-shirt. Was I robbed of a t-shirt? I don't seem to remember a t-shirt. But it had a glass, which is nice. So that's really nice. I mean, I wish more people did that. Just send you stuff without even asking. Awesome. I mean, I'm also on there. This is the funny thing. No, it's not funny. It's awesome that I'm on their artist page, because they got in touch about NAMM and say, oh, hi, you're one of our special people. Well, am I? That's nice. Oh, yeah, I've got some of your cables. They said, would you like to give us a bio so we can stick you on our artist page? I've never been on an artist on anybody's page before, so I was a bit flummoxed and then thought, yeah, all right, let's do that then. So I came up with some nonsense about myself, a nice picture of me emerging from Hoser cables, you know, that kind of thing. And they stuck it up, and I'm up there with, like, Richard Devine. And that tickles me enormously. I think that's brilliant. So I'm just going with it, as with most things, just going with it, I think. DivKid, yeah. No worries about the video, about the module, man. No, that was immensely enjoyable. I enjoy doing those. I relished the opportunity to be forced into doing one, because as I've explained many times, I think making videos is an effort for me, because I overanalyze and I never quite think I've got the gist of something. This is never going to work. I don't really know what I'm talking about. So I need a push, and you releasing that product, it being a kit, I thought, sod it, I'll buy one, it will come, and I'll just do it. And that was great, and I was able to do it, and I was able to sit there and talk about philosophy, interesting things about life, universe and everything while soldering, because that's what you do when you solder. You know, you solder and life is just passing you by. Things are happening and you're breathing in, you're breathing out, lead fumes, that kind of thing. And it's a very mindful experience. And you start talking about, you know, forests and rivers floating by and stuff and soldering. It's great. It's a wonderful experience. I can recommend it to anyone. And then at the end of it, you come up and you've got a flipping good little module. So I've already embarrassed myself with the mutes earlier on when I forgot that it was muted. Sitting there going, why aren't I getting any sound out? And it's because, you know, because I've got a mutes. That's why. Look, over here. Look, there you go. Oh, hang on. There we go. That's not doing anything. So there, yeah, mutes, awesome. Yeah, it was great. It was great fun. You know, the instructions are never as good as you need them to be for someone as stupid as myself. But you know, I enjoyed pointing those little things out, because that's I think that's kind of fun. So yeah. And it's genuinely a good module. I mean, that's the great thing about it. Not only is it a fun build and stuff, and it's by DivKid, but it's actually really useful. And you go, oh, I can use this. Yeah, no, definitely I can. Yeah, you can't say that about every module, I don't think. Right. Why are your cables so expensive? We see, I have no idea, because I haven't had to buy any, because Hoser sent me a whole stack. So I am ignorant to the price of of patch cables, and I make no apologies for that. What music am I listening to at the moment? I'm listening to Human League, Dare, and I'm listening to, now that's what I call Music 8, because I picked those up in a new, not a new vinyl shop, an old vinyl shop in North Walsham, because I don't know, we walk past this shop and go, oh look, I hadn't seen that before. I don't spend a lot of time in North Walsham. It's my nearest town, but I don't like hang out there or anything particularly. So I was surprised to find this little shop. But I was with my two boys at the time, and in the front were lots of old consoles and bits of Atari stuff and Nintendo stuff. So we went in and had a look, and they had racks and racks of vinyl. Fantastic. Flipping heck, I thought, I'm going to spend all my pocket money in here. And I restricted myself to 2, so I took Human League Dare, and I took, now that's what I call Music 8, which is awesome. I mean, that was an 86, I think it was. And it's really interesting. I mean, I've always had in my head, I'd really like to do like a documentary on 80s pop music and stuff, because that's what I lived. I lived through that. But I always find it interesting how it changes, how the early 80s was so intensely synth pop, and how by 1986 we already had Mel and Kim, we already had Stock Aitken and Wilkinson getting in there, and the Hit Factory, and how the sound had changed more and more digital into more and more sampling. It's really interesting, because I was at that time I was heavily into sampling, Fairlights, synclaviers. That was my bag, man. I was really into that kind of thing. I could spot an Orc hit in any sort of track, rather than the more analog synthy stuff that I've only really come to appreciate that in later life. But it's interesting just how it was already in 86. Doesn't seem quite right that it was already changing into Hit Factory, already changing into house music. Those sorts of influences were starting to appear, more R&B, that kind of thing. Fascinating. Why don't I talk about this? I don't know. And also the Human League album as well was interesting, because it was Lindrum more than 808. And those samples I recognise. In fact, the drum patterns were simple drum patterns that I had going as well at the time, I seem to remember. I've got an old track I can pull out that sounds just like whatever that track was that I can't remember. So yeah, fascinating, picking up some old records, and I'm going to probably do a lot more of that, I should think, because I have no idea what to listen to new. Although I did listen to Richard Devine's album. I did pick that up. I thought, sod it, I'll buy it, because I don't have any clue. Because every time you see his Instagram videos or little Facebook clips, it's just bubbly stuff going on. I mean, it's interesting, but ultimately I find not particularly satisfying, not something I can really bite into, And then you put the album on and it's mostly bubbling. You're going, oh, that's actually his stuff, that's his thing, that's his vibe, man, is the bubbly. They've got 1,000 things going on at once. So initially, I wasn't particularly impressed by that. I mean, I'm impressed in that, well, it's an amazing combination of sounds and stuff going on, but I wasn't particularly going, oh wow, man, yeah, this is the groove. This is an awesome piece of music that I want to listen to and spend my time with. However, it rewards repeat listening, I found, and certainly I think it was side 3 was particularly good and really stood out. There was something there, I think it was, that I thought, wow, that's actually getting really interesting now. There's something more in there than just bubbly. So yeah, but interesting. But that's the scene, man. That's something that a lot of people do. I mean, one thing which interests me at the moment, and something which I might, if I'm brave enough, play with a bit at Thomann, and that's the idea of singing with Modular. Now, I know some people do. Caitlin Aurelia Smith is a good example. But what I think I'm trying to get to, because modular performance, my modular performance at any rate, what I've done so far, it is largely improvised. There is some idea of a thing in there. You might have created a sequence that you're using, and then you're playing around with that. So for me, because I can't reproduce something that I've done, you do it in the moment, and then when you've unplugged it, it's then gone. That's just the way of things. And so you can't really, I believe, write a song that you could then perform somewhere else, because you then can't do one. Does that make sense? Because then it's gone. You can't recreate it. It'll be different every time. So in order for that to work, without having to either have a massive rack and a way of recording everything and keeping everything right, the singing side of it, I'm getting there, has to be similarly of the moment. So I'm talking about improvising. So improvising your voice, improvising the vocal with the modular. Does that mean you write words first, remember those, and then bring those words? Or do you make up the words as you go at that moment, in that instant? I mean, ideally, yes. I guess like a rap battle, man, but singing with modular. I think that would be really interesting. Because, I mean, ultimately, at heart, I am a performer of some kind. I perform all the time, and I'm... Oh, goes to reach for his guitar, which is not there, because I dropped it on the floor. I'm performing next weekend in a 60s band, playing guitar and singing. I mentioned that, yes. So that's something that I do, and I like to do, and I think it's something which... Because, I mean, feel free to argue with me completely, but I think a lot of musical personality comes through the voice. I think a lot of... If all the music is instrumental, and it's great. I mean, I used to love, funnily enough, in this record shop, God, I'm all over the place, but in this record shop, I also found a copy of Vangelis's China, and there's a track on there, The Long March, which is one of my favourite pieces of music of all time. I listened to it over and over when I was a kid. I loved instrumental music. Oh, they also had a copy of the Horizons album, which was a whole bunch of instrumental songs, including things like Crockett's Theme and The Wizard and just all this stuff. So I was heavily into instrumental music when I was a kid. What am I saying? So today, with electronic music, with modular, with synthesizers, there's an awful lot of instrumental music out there, and it's difficult, I think, to make that distinctive. I think often what makes something distinctive is the voice, because the voice is more often than not unique. Is that fair? I don't know, maybe I'm treading on dangerous ground here, I know, because we all make instrumental music. You know, that's what we like to do. I mean, there's certainly an element where you don't want some idiot running on at you about stuff and love or that, or politics. You just want to get rid of all of that stuff. But then, I don't know, I mean, we quite like the orb, the underworld, I don't know. Quite like Dread Zone. Talking about stuff. I don't know, it's just an idea. So where was I going with this? No, I have no idea. But just the concept of singing with modular, that's something I want to look at. I want to pursue it at some point. I'm probably going to force it onto you good people. So what do I mean? How would I do that? I would turn it up. I'll turn something on. Oh, see, it's already horrible. I can see you all running away. But, you know, it would just be something in within that. Oh, running up that microphone technique. Oh, we hate politics. I don't know, I have no idea. I haven't really experimented. I don't know what voice to use. Do I use my rock voice? Do I use my somewhere beyond the sea? Do I use that voice? I don't know yet, you see. It's experimental, man. I don't quite know where it's going to go. But I'm partly horrified, traumatised, and partly excited by it. So there you go. There's something to look forward to. So, while I've been running on, what has anybody else had to say? Improv vocals. Yeah, exactly. That's what I said. Yeah, that's how that works. Okay, good. Recommendations. Nice. Yeah, I didn't say what the album was. It was Dare. Yes, of course it was. Yeah, I've never had it before. I mean, I've heard all the the tracks on it before, but it's really interesting to come back to it after all this time. That's the beer gone. We must be winding to a close at some point soon then. Yeah, I mean, there has been stuff over the years that I've liked with electronic music. I mean, I'm no electronic music aficionado. I mean, I used to be. I mean, yeah, I could talk about Jan Hammer and Paul Hardcastle and and Crockett's Theme and Vangelis and stuff back in the day. Yeah, absolutely. But I have no clue as to electronic music these days at all. I mean, you know, I mean, I really loved that Goldfrapp album, Seventh Tree, I think it was. That was phenomenal. But that's probably too long ago now to even talk about. I can't remember. Things I get inspired by, like I remember the soundtrack to Whale Rider, right? This is something that heavily influenced me. Lisa, I can't quite remember her name now, who sings on that. But we rented the DVD, I think from Blockbuster, when this was, and stuck it in the machine in the house, and we watched it. We then went to bed, left the DVD in the machine, and for some reason although I'd stopped the DVD player, it somehow turned itself back on again and went to the menu, and behind the menu was just this track of Lisa singing and this whale music and this stuff. And it's sort of in the middle of the night, I woke up from this really deep sleep, and like all around me was this sound, and it was like treacle, and I had to kind of swim my way very appropriately into the living room, and it was just the sound of that voice and those pads was just amazing. It completely enveloped you. I mean, and I pressed stop and I went to bed. But I was just heavily influenced by that idea of how transformational that sound was. And then this is all around the time that I released an album of meditation music years ago. I have a number of albums of meditation music, but that's not the point. I'm just trying to say about how music was very moving, and how that and very transformational, and how influential that was on me. Not sure where I was going with this. Doesn't really matter. So music these days, no, I don't have any clue. I mean, I picked up the System by Tatachi album when I first started getting into Modular. Found that very interesting and very listenable. I loved the duet between Caitlin O'Reilly Smith and Suzanne Kiani. That was fantastic. That thing, just amazing. That was exactly the sort of thing that I really like. That build up, that emotional movement of sound. But I don't really have much of a clue as to who to listen to, or where to listen to, or how to access it. So I just take stabs at things from time to time. And that's why I've enjoyed the synth meets that we have and the open mic stuff, because it's just people doing their thing. Because, I mean, music is so much bigger now. It can be anything. It doesn't have to be something. I mean, I get slightly narked by people talking to me about techno, because the track that I did at the open mic last had a kick and a hi-hat going on. Therefore, it's techno. Is it? I don't know. It just sounded like a nice beat. I wasn't attempting any kind of genre. I like a kick drum that does that sometimes, and that's interesting. I'm going for that. But I think that music is at a point where it can be anything. And that's really interesting. It doesn't have to be a particular thing. It doesn't have to find itself in a particular pocket anymore. Don't know. So yeah, there we go. So before we bring this to a close, let's just check if there's anything else interesting to talk about. Oh yeah, like Aphex Twin. I've never been aware of on purpose listening to Aphex Twin. Am I allowed to say that? I don't know. I just haven't. I'm sorry. I listened to some Deadmau5 by accident the other day, because it was he did the theme to Polar, that quite extraordinarily violent assassin movie on Netflix, which I watched last night. Gosh, that was kind of raw, But it was good. I mean, Mads, whatever his name is, he was extraordinary. What a thing. Matt Lucas, I have no idea about that. I don't think I even want to say anything about that, because he was his usual strange, weird self, perfectly cast, presumably, assuming that that role was supposed to be crazy and weird. But otherwise, what a mad movie. But as I say, Mads himself was phenomenal. But the theme tune was by Deadmau5, so I accidentally listened to some of that. It was good. I liked it. The other thing I listened to is How to Destroy Angels. Yeah, Nine Inch Nails, Trent Reznor, that kind of thing. Fantastic. Loved that. That was an extraordinary album. I mean, it started off as a single to an EP to an album. I loved all of that. Excellent. And that, again, was singing over synthy stuff. But it wasn't modular. It wasn't that kind of improvised. Does that make sense? Am I still talking about this stuff? I don't know. You can never have too much Fairlight. Yeah, DivKid, looking forward to the synth event. You know, I mean, I'm completely with you, man. I've no idea what it's about or what we're doing there or what's supposed to be going on. But I'm going to get there. I'm going to stay in a nice hotel, have some nice breakfast, and we're going to get to play on stuff. And we're just going to have to make it up as we go. I think it's best to turn up without an agenda. I'm not really bringing any gear. I thought I might bring my Surface and an audio interface to give me something to play on when I've gone to bed or whatever. I still haven't decided on a camera. Am I bringing a proper camera? Am I going to try to get a different camera? Well, there's a question for other people out there. So yeah, DivKid, I will see you there in a week or so. That'll be well cool, man. I really don't know what to say on it other than it's going to be weird. So yeah. Okay, so yeah, question to people, and you might know something about this, I have no idea, but at the Thomann event we had the opportunity just to wander about by ourselves and do our own videos and whatever gear we can find, and that's great. However, I don't know what camera to take. I don't actually know how to do that. How do people do that at shows and stuff? How do you do a decent demo of a piece of gear when you're wandering around a show? I'm assuming I need some kind of dictaphone recorder, you know, a Zoom recorder, I'm assuming, that you plug the output of the synth into, then your headphones into that. I suppose that works, but couldn't you plug it into your camera? But it depends, what sort of camera should I take? I don't want to take my SLR because it's big and chunky and heavy and it will get in the way. So then do I have to buy a little camera, but then you don't have an audio input on that? But then that might be more convenient. But then how much usage am I going to get out of a little camera? I'm only ever going to take it to shows, because otherwise I'll be using my SLR for doing videos properly. Or should I get an action camera? Should I get a Hero Pro 7? Because that's actually cheaper and it runs video forever, as opposed to you get 30 minutes on normal things. I really don't know, because you have to deal with that slight parallax problem on the action cams, a wide angle lens, although you can fix that in the camera. So I'm trying to decide what to take with me to this place to get the best out of it, and I'm finding that heck of a confusing at the moment. So I just don't know. So if anyone has any definitive ideas on that, do let me know. How do I film a demo on a synth in a shop by myself? How do I do that? There's a question. Yeah, no gear. No gear. People get talking about bringing instruments. It's like, what? We've got a warehouse full of instruments. Why would I bring an instrument? Yeah, indeed. Need a good vlogging camera. Yeah, I do. I suppose I do. I'm probably just going to have to do that. Because, I mean, I've struggled, because I do long videos, I've really struggled with the whole 30-minute problem with an SLR. And that drives me nuts. But the quality of video... I've got a Canon, this one here is a Canon EOS 70D, is just so much better than what I was getting out of the thing I've got here. Ooh, really dropped it. This Panasonic thing. I mean, this is a camcorder, and it keeps going and going and going. It doesn't have any limit on the time you can record with it. But the quality is not as good. It's just not as good as the Canon. So I want something of similar quality, but will not get stuck on the half an hour. Because forever I am demoing, doing stuff, looking up, and the flipping thing has stopped. I mean, it doesn't even give you a beep. It should at least give you a beep. And you go, well, how long has that been stopped? It's just, it does me in. Whereas the GoPro, that's what I'm after, the GoPro is a video camera, so it goes forever. But I don't want to buy one of those camcorders because they're a bit bulky and they're just not as good, man. But then a compact camera, like there's some nice Canon ones, like a GX7 I think it is, looks great, but it's going to suffer from the same 30 minutes, and I just don't know whether that's the right investment. Maybe I just use my phone. Oh God. I don't know. And at least with a GoPro, it's a sort of thing I could use in other places. You know, I could strap it to my head while I'm doing Kung Fu or something. You know, it has other usefulnesses. Yes, I could set an alarm on my phone. It's just an extra layer, you know. Extra layers of stuff. Another thing I've got to turn on. I've already got to turn on the sound, recording directly into Vegas from my other gear. Make sure that's on. At one time I was using a little recorder for my mic to go in, but the little recorder started playing up, so I can't risk it anymore. So now I go straight into the camera, which is much more useful, I think. Although I always feel a little bit funny about it. I'm never quite sure whether that's going to work or not. What am I saying? Anyway, so yeah. If you go for a GoPro and a separate audio recording, syncing things after isn't that bad. Yeah, no, I'm quite happy syncing after the event. That's all right. I mean, I've saved, as I say, I've saved a load of time now that I plug my little lavalier mic directly into my camera, because that works. I did try it through an extension cable that didn't work, and that's nothing more frustrating than spending an hour on a video then finding the audio is crap. But direct in now, I've got that sorted, and that saved me a lot of time with that whole syncing thing. But I'm already having to sync with other things, like recording all of this isn't being recorded into the camera, it's been recorded into my computer separately. So I'm completely happy with audio video sync in Sony Vegas. That's what I do, that's my life, man. So yeah, no problem. Bring the one that works best. Tops, when I have no idea which one would work best. Yeah, okay, I can do all that. I think that's probably enough then. We've been here for 2 hours. I think that's probably plenty. So what's happening? So I'm going to be at Thomann in the middle of the month sometime, 14th to the 17th I think it is. I might do a live stream from there, possibly from my hotel room. Who knows? That sounds weird. I didn't mean it to sound weird. So maybe I won't do that. I don't know. But there should be some great people. Hopefully we'll have a great time and we'll produce some great content, which is what everybody wants. Everybody wants our content. So let's do that. But otherwise, coming up, I have more stuff on Surface to do. I do have the sample slicer I want to build desperately. I have to create a piece of music for Soul Circus, which is the week after Thomann. And that's what I'm trying to do here, because the theme of the service, this is something that I do. I do music, and I'm part of the team that creates alternative worship services for cathedrals. And although this time at the moment we're in Great Yarmouth Minster, which is this enormous space. You've no idea how large this thing is, and that sound just disappears. There's no way you're putting a decent PA in there, but I try. And the sound of the Modular in there is just awesome. Particularly things like the pluck, just fantastic. Anyway, but the theme of this particular event is noise. The idea being that can we move from noise to silence as we approach the divine? See how interesting that is? The idea being that we'll start off really noisily, I think, and then get to Eucharist at the end in complete silence, which I think will be fascinating. But in order to soundtrack that, I've got noise going on. Where's my noise gone? There we go. So I want to go from a position of noise into a position of melody and then into a position of silence. So that's what I'm working on at the moment. I'm trying to achieve something like that. So that's that. So yeah, I'll be getting on with doing that kind of thing. So that's the thing that's coming up next time. So look out for those sorts of videos. More Surface, more Modular, just more and more of me. So thanks very much for coming along. I hope I haven't offended anybody too badly. Thanks for sticking with it and checking out the sort of stuff that we do here. I'm going to have a quick fiddle for 5 minutes, let you talk amongst yourselves, and that'll do it. In the meantime, go make some tunes like you want to. Yeah, strip out the layers, as DivKid says. Strip out the layers, man. Absolutely. I don't need another button to press. I really don't. That's why I mean, this is part of doing this live stream is brilliant, because you just set up the camera. I mean, there's a bit of setup to start with, but then it just goes, and then it's a video all by itself. I mean, that's phenomenal. That's changed my life, that has. And then other little bits, as I say, chipping away at it, like putting the mic directly into the camera. When it works, that's just a glorious thing. I used to do all of my Molten monthlies outside, which I thought was a brilliant thing. But having done them inside, no one's actually moaned about it. No one seems to care that much. And it's so much easier doing it inside, because I've already got things set up, and I've got the lights, and I've got no screen glare and all that kind of thing. It's great. So simplicity, simplifying it all the time is a great thing. Very much into that, trying to make that happen more and more and more. Anyway, I'd already gone. I'd already said goodbye, so thanks ever so. I'll just give you a couple of minutes of whatever this is, and thanks, Edna. I'll do some things. Alright then, see you next time.